From our viewers today.
All right.
Now, the first question is, in this transmission, you're describing the idea of other realities bleeding through into the one we are in. Can you point out some of the strongest reality bleed through events that we would recognize from modern history?
Not so much historic events that we will call out, but the idea of certain experiences, like deja vu, can be the result of bleed through from other realities that may be experiencing something similar to what you are experiencing in your timeline, but maybe ahead of your timeline, the event already having happened. And therefore, when you pick up on the idea that the event has already happened in another timeline, when your consciousness is expanded enough to do so and become sensitive to receiving that information that has happened in the other parallel timeline, and you, in your reality, finally arrive at that moment, then you have a sense that it has happened before, that you know what's going to happen. So that's one way in which the idea of bleed-throughs can express themselves in your timeline through the idea of deja vu.
Okay. How different are the parallel Earth realities where Christmas was never celebrated in the Western world? Is there another holiday that generally replaced it? And are they farther from open contact than we are, or do they have a variation of it?
You are speaking as if there are only a few realities that experience things in different ways. There are a large number of realities that have different experiences along the subject that you're asking about. So when you say, are they closer to contact than we are? Some of them are, some of them are not. Some of the major changes in terms of what you experience as your Christmas holidays in some versions of Earth are experienced simply as winter solstice day, and may be more representative of some of the original ideas that you experienced on Earth before it became known as the idea of Christmas. When the winter spirit in certain cultures was acknowledged, celebrated, and was the one delivering the idea of gifts, so on and so forth, such as beings that one culture on your planet refers to as Kernanos, instead of the idea of Santa Claus. So again, there are many different versions of Earth that experience holidays in many different ways. Some of them are very similar to yours. Some of them are not like yours at all.
Okay. You have said that our nuclear weapons might disturb other realities because too much energy can punch holes into other realities. If that is the case, then what exactly is happening within our sun? Soul, our sun, must be punching holes into other realities because of the intense energy within it. What does this look like in the other realities, and is there bleed through from other realities into our sun?
Yes, stars being a natural phenomenon fit in a balanced way within the universe. They do represent portals and doorways into different realities, but again, since it is all created naturally as part of the structure of the universe, it is not out of balance. It does not cause negative repercussions, even though it may tunnel into different timelines and different realities, and stars in one reality may appear very differently in another reality. The idea of nuclear war, nuclear detonations, is not, in that sense, a natural phenomenon, and therefore can be disruptive by being an expression of a large release of energy in an unnatural, unbalanced way that doesn't fit into the idea of the natural structure of existence. And that is why it is something to be avoided.
Okay, this person is saying that they can no longer depend on fingerprint ID on electronics because once they set it up, it only lasts for a short while, sometimes just a few hours. Is that a function of their shifting realities, or is it just a mundane technical problem?
It can sometimes be a technical issue, but the idea is that when people start accelerating their vibration, they can interfere with electronic devices in many different ways. So it can be a sign that you are broadening your bandwidth and that the vibration you're giving off may not necessarily always be vibrationally compatible with some of the electronic devices that you use.
And how exactly do you switch timelines? Can it feel seamless and easy? How will I know that I switched timelines? Can I ask for an obvious sign like a new freckle that I didn't have before?
Sometimes there are physical manifestations of having made a switch, but again, remember, you are switching all the time. So, yes, it is usually seamless. You don't even know you're doing it. When it is necessary for you to recognize that you have shifted into a parallel reality, again, you're doing this billions of times per second, but when it becomes necessary for you to recognize that you're doing it, when it is something that you need to experience as not being seamless, when you notice the shift, it can happen in many different ways. You can just get a feeling, an energy surge. You might see something different on your body that you didn't notice before. You might see things differently in your surrounding reality that you didn't notice before. You might see things appearing that weren't there a moment ago or disappearing that were there a moment ago. There can be many different ways in which you can recognize you have shifted. It just depends on the person and what is relevant for your life path. But remember that you're shifting all the time. It is usually seamless. It is not something you necessarily have to pay attention to. It is something that happens automatically as you guide yourself by making your choices, and then that determines and controls exactly how you're shifting. That's why, again, we give you the formula because it is a very precise navigational tool that will allow you to navigate through the shifting into different parallel realities in a way that works to your advantage, that is relevant for the experience in a positive way of what you laid out in your life path.
And is it possible to move from one reality to the next without having the death experience? This
Again,
individual says,
you're shifting all the time. So you are moving from one reality to another in a sense without the idea of experiencing death. So, yes, it's possible. But again, the idea of death is something a little bit different because you're waking back up into yourself as a soul, as a spirit, and it serves a different function. It serves a different purpose. It gives you the opportunity to make choices on a different level.
okay, and this next question is why must we humans shift to a certain vibration if there exists an intelligent universe and higher beings that are able to translate our intentions and wishes? Why is it so complicated to shift to a reality we prefer?
It is all about the process of learning how to do that by going through the process. That's why you chose to have a physical experience, so that you challenge yourself in a different way than you challenge yourself in spirit. And by challenging yourself through the idea of the experience of physical processes, you gain knowledge and insight and lessons and growth in a different way than you would in spirit. The idea that there may be other beings that exist on higher levels has nothing at all to do with the choices you have made for what you will experience in your particular life path. They may assist you, you may have a team behind you, but they will only be able to assist you on the life path that you all agreed you would experience and the processes you agreed that you would go through because your soul determined that that's what you needed for your particular kind of growth that you preferred. So you are living out your life path and will go through these challenges and processes because they are the lessons that you need to learn to grow in the way that you chose to as a soul.
Okay, and this individual is saying that during the night between November 30th and December 1st, they felt a wave of positive vibration go through their body that woke them up. It was like an earthquake or the pressure wave from an explosion. I could feel and even see it. Before this, I dreamed of a small yellow oval-shaped light slowly falling onto my balcony. I sensed it might be delivering a message. Could this experience be connected to the CE5 contact I did the evening before? Some are linking the Schumann resonance during the time frame to a timeline shift. What could have happened here?
Yes, you had an encounter. You opened up to the idea in your CE5 of inviting an encounter, and therefore you had one. But it took place on different levels of reality, and so seems a little bit confusing to you because it didn't necessarily take place in your physical reality in totality. So, by experiencing that encounter in a slightly altered version of reality, it is something that doesn't quite make sense to you when you wake up in the morning and start to remember what you experienced, sort of similar to the idea of a dream. Nevertheless, it was representative of an encounter you had invited to have happen.
And since we are constantly shifting between realities, if we feel we've given away our energy, become disconnected, or fallen out of balance, is it necessary to go back and fix or clarify the situation with the person or circumstance involved? Or can we simply reclaim our energy, reconnect within ourselves, and move forward? In general, when is it best to address the past versus letting go and moving on?
It depends on the circumstance, the situation. If you feel it is important for you in some way, shape, or form to clarify your intentions with another person in terms of what happened, that's all well and good. If you're not necessarily able to do that, or it's really not necessarily relevant for you to do that, you can simply learn the lesson and move forward. Either can work.
Okay. And can you give us some suggestions or tools to more easily access our parallel lives?
Again, you're accessing them all the time when you need to, when it's relevant for your life path to download information from a parallel reality experience. You don't always need to know that that's happening consciously. Let it happen automatically. If it becomes relevant for you to know that, then by following the formula, synchronicity will bring it to your attention when and where it's important for you to have a realization that that's happening. Otherwise, don't interfere with the mechanism. Let it function and flow naturally, automatically, so that you can simply move forward in your life by downloading what you need from where you need it, when you need it.
Okay, and this person is talking about seeing things and then they like disappear, bows, Christmas bows, candles, just things disappearing. When that happens, what's the best way to interpret such events?
We have already discussed this. The idea is that when you are shifting realities in a way where you become very aware that you're shifting, you may see the shift in certain circumstances, like things appearing that weren't there a moment ago or things disappearing that were there a moment ago. So this can be one of the signs that you are broadening your bandwidth of awareness in such a manner that you are proving to yourself that you are actually shifting different realities.
Okay. And if we are constantly shifting to different realities and experiencing different versions of people, then who are we really in relationship with? What makes our family or our friends and our close friends, our close family, which versions of them are we connected with in spirit?
You may be dealing with different versions that are extensions of their greater oversoul. When you shift to a different reality and are interacting with a different version of them, it may be a different extension of the greater oversoul that they are connected to.
Okay, and this one is kind of interesting. There have been times when this person practiced creating their own reality, such as imagining a shift to a reality where the person they wanted as their boyfriend would show up on a plane and say he wants to join her on his trip. However, when I focus on believing I can shift instantly, I start to feel extremely anxious. Why does this happen? And is it really anxiety or is it something else?
It is anxiety produced by the insistence that you have that things have to happen in a certain way, have to unfold in a certain way. You can have the visualization that represents an ideal outcome, but remember, you can't insist on it because you don't know that that's actually the ideal person for you to interact with at that moment in that way. So it is your insistence that it must happen that way that is causing resistance and therefore causes an anxiety energy within you.
Okay. And this person is saying they are curious about what you are learning from our interpretations of the oracle statement that was delivered in the last transmission. Can you tell us what you have been able to determine from observing our interpretations of that statement?
As we already mentioned in one of our transmissions, we will not be discussing anything having to do with your interpretations of what the oracle downloaded to you.
Okay, and so does that eliminate this question about the Anunnaki name for their home world being Ashea and the Sasani word for the oracle being Ashaya? They sounded similar, and they were wondering if that was synchronicity or you could tell us something about that synchronicity.
This was a downloadable glitch. The name of the world is actually Essa. It was simply that there was a residual energy and a residual pod of information that was downloaded to the channel with regard to the idea of the name of the oracle, which means spirit light, Ashaya, in our ancient language, and the idea still that the residual existed within the channel's neurological net that allowed it to be translated with the same word, when in fact the word and the name of the world actually is Essa.
Okay, thank you. You spoke in your last transmission about the importance of balancing masculine and feminine energy at this time and seemed to be encouraging us to lean into the feminine. To clarify, when you're talking about feminine energy leading to a more preferable form of open contact, are you saying to move away from masculine energy entirely, or rather to integrate masculine energy in a healthy way with the feminine? What would a healthy masculine energy balance in line with open contact look like?
Obviously, if you understand all the messages we have delivered to you, we are never going to tell you to move away from one energy or another. It's all about the idea of integration and balance. So, the feminine energy of nurturing and support in that way can be balanced with the masculine energy of assertiveness and standing one's ground, expressed in a non-violent way, not in an aggressive way, but in an assertive way, in a knowledgeable way. And both sides can benefit from this in a balanced state, where you can have something as a masculine energy, or what is typically referred to as a masculine energy, that doesn't even necessarily have to be looked at anymore as masculine. Whereas the idea of a nurturing and supportive energy doesn't even necessarily have to be looked at anymore as a specifically feminine energy, where you can have beings that are confident in themselves, capable of being so confident and assertive about who they are that they are capable of expressing a nurturing and supportive energy to others and being of service in that way. So the balance is that that's how it would look. You are grounded and assertive and confident within yourself enough that you can actually be of service in supporting others in their life path as well.
And it seems that you put a great focus on us finding balance in our reactions on different levels. Could you expand on that? Is there any exercise or meditation that you could offer for us to practice balance?
Well, again, the idea would be to ask yourself why you would choose something that would be representative of being out of balance. In other words, the idea of knowing yourself more fully, more transparently is very important to the process of staying in balance, because then you understand why you believe what you believe and can easily or more easily recognize when it might not be representative of being in balance with yourself, of not being within integrity within who you truly are, within your essential core frequency or vibration. So the idea is to ask, Why would I choose something that would be out of balance? Why would I do that? It is all part of knowing yourself. It's all part of your self-investigation and recognizing the idea that we have just described as being in balance by having a assertive confidence about who you are and your preferences, and yet at the same time also being open to the strength in vulnerability that allows you to be of service to others. That is a representation of balance. And so why would you choose anything other than that?